The traffic cam footage starts in silence, just the hum of tires and faint rustle of wind before something strange arrests the eye. A cat, still as a statue, planted in the middle of the highway like it had been dropped from the sky. Ears flat, fur ragged, it faced 6 lanes of rushing steel and didn't move an inch. Cars veered, honked, and blazed past it, but the animal didn't flinch. The camera caught every second, broadcasting it live to the local news station's early morning feed. At 6:47 a.m., most viewers thought they were watching a tragedy in real time. But at a small VA clinic in the outskirts of Asheville, one man didn't see danger, he saw a reflection. Eli Ramirez hadn't looked anyone in the eyes for months, but that cat on screen held his gaze like a challenge. He stood, slowly, unaware that he had already started walking towards something that would change him forever. Eli was 41 and lived alone in a trailer on the edge of a wooded lot, a half-mile from the nearest mailbox and even further from anything resembling connection. He'd served 14 years in the Army, completed a tour in Afghanistan, and returned home physically intact but mentally locked in a loop. He'd stopped going to group therapy after 6 sessions and started fixing old radios instead, finding comfort in tuning static. Most of his days were structured. Get up at 0600, drink instant coffee, take meds, repair electronics, avoid people. He didn't speak unless he had to. When asked if he was okay, he said, "I'm fine," because that was easier than explaining why he flinched at fireworks or why he slept on the floor. The only time he ventured out was for VA appointments today, a hearing test. The clinic waiting room was too bright, the seats too stiff, the conversations around him too full of forced cheer. He stared at the muted television, reading the subtitles out of boredom. Then came the footage. "Unbelievable scene this morning on I-85, the anchor wrote with false calm. The screen cut to the image, a cat, thin, gray, standing directly in the path of oncoming traffic. Eli leaned forward, his interest suddenly visceral. For the first time in weeks, his body felt awake. His eyes locked on the animal's stillness, the way it faced the roar without blinking. Something inside him stirred a painful, reluctant recognition. He watched as a man sprinted into the road, a civilian, not law enforcement, waving frantically, ducking between speeding cars. Eli could feel the tension in his own chest as the man slowed near the cat, crouching low, hand out, saying something the cameras couldn't catch. The cat's ears twitched. It blinked once, very slowly, then stepped forward just as a delivery truck barreled past. Eli didn't breathe. The truck veered into the median, barely missing them. The screen cut to black. A beat of silence passed in the waiting room before a nurse called a name. It wasn't his. Eli stayed frozen in his seat, eyes still on the screen. He hadn't had a panic attack in nearly 3 months. But this was something different, something sharp, almost holy. The way the cat stood still in chaos, like it had accepted the world's violence and waited to see if anyone would notice. The way the man had run toward it, not away, it made something ache in his gut. He didn't understand why, but he knew he couldn't sit still anymore. Without asking for his appointment to be rescheduled, without saying goodbye to the receptionist, Eli walked out of the building and straight to his truck. He didn't turn on the radio. He didn't need to. The echo of tires and meows already filled his head. He found the highway turnout by instinct. He'd never been there before, but the image had seared itself into his memory. The guardrail was bent slightly near exit 214, and black skid marks curved violently into the grass. He parked his truck a safe distance away and walked. The air smelled like fuel and wet pavement. The wind carried the low hum of distant engines. As he approached the edge of the road, his boots crunching against gravel, he saw the flannel jacket first. It was laid gently on a patch of grass beside the median. Something small was wrapped inside it. A woman was crouched nearby, on the phone, her hand resting protectively over the jacket. She looked up as Eli approached, her face wary. He paused, hands visible, posture low. Old instincts kicked in. Don't escalate, don't alarm. I saw the video, he said, voice rasping from disuse. Her shoulders softened a little. Are they okay? He added. The woman nodded slowly, pulling the jacket aside to reveal a narrow face, 2 frightened green eyes, and a trembling body. The cat was alive. Hurt, but alive. Eli crouched down, his knees cracking, and met her eyes. The cat didn't hiss or try to run. She watched him, her ears twitching, her breathing shallow but steady. A thin white bandage circled one paw, and her ribs showed through her fur. Eli reached out, hesitated, then rested his hand gently near her side. "Tough little thing," he whispered. The woman nodded. "We think she was out there all night. Animal control's coming soon." Eli nodded but didn't move. He felt the wind shift, or maybe something inside him did. A deep, quiet truth was taking root. This wasn't just about the cat. It was about everything he hadn't said, hadn't done, hadn't felt until now. He offered to stay with the woman until help arrived. She agreed. Together they sat in silence beside the highway, to strangers connected by an impossible moment. Cars zipped by, indifferent, but in that small patch of roadside grass, time had slowed. The cat nestled deeper into the flannel, her body trusting, finally, that she was safe. Ilo watched her breathe, watched the soft rise and fall of her chest. He hadn't cried in years, but his throat thickened. Not from sadness but from something older, recognition, something had survived. And that meant maybe he could too. When animal control arrived, the woman stood up, thanked Eli, and walked toward the van with the cat cradled in her arms. Eli remained kneeling by the grass, unsure why his feet wouldn't move. The wind carried the sound of fading sirens. The moment was over, but something had changed, not outside but inside. He stood slowly, brushed off his jeans, and looked once more at the space where the cat had waited for the world to stop. He touched the bent guardrail briefly, as if marking the place, then turned back toward his truck. A spark had been lit. He didn't know what it meant yet. But he was going to find out. Eli didn't sleep that night. He lay on his old army cot in the corner of his trailer, the ceiling fan spinning shadows above him, the image of the cat replaying in his mind like a mission briefing. Her eyes were seared into him, quiet, alert, and waiting for something that might not come. He kept wondering why she hadn't run, why she hadn't tried to escape, and why, when the man reached out, she chose to take a step forward. That single motion haunted him more than anything he'd seen in combat. It was the moment she decided to live. And now, he couldn't stop thinking about where she was, who she was with, if she was warm. By noon the next day, he was at the county animal shelter, something he hadn't set foot in since high school. He stood outside for almost 10 minutes before walking in, his boots too loud on the tile. The woman at the front desk asked if she could help, and he struggled to find words. "The cat from the highway," he finally said. "I saw it. I need to know if she's okay." Her face shifted, slightly softened. She nodded, typing into her system. "We've had a lot of calls about her. Someone brought her in yesterday. She's still under observation." Eli felt his chest release for the first time all morning. "Can I see her?" he asked, and held his breath. The woman hesitated. "She's in medical recovery. Technically not up for visits." She looked him over his rigid stance, his eyes that didn't quite meet hers. Then she stood. "Come on, 5 minutes." She led him through a corridor that smelled of bleach and dog food. He passed cages of barking, tail-wagging residents, but he didn't look at them. He was focused, every step a mission. At the far end, in a quiet room separated by glass, was a small cage with a heat lamp above it. Inside, on a soft fleece blanket, lay the cat. She was curled tightly, one leg bandaged, for taped to her paw. Her ears twitched as he entered. Then she opened her eyes. For a long second, Eli just stared. She was even smaller than he remembered, more fragile, but something about her posture, spine straight, eyes steady, was unmistakable. He sat on a low stool beside the cage. She watched him without fear. "Hey there," he said softly. His voice cracked a little. "You made it." She blinked slowly, the same way she had on the highway. He placed his hand against the glass. She didn't move, but she didn't look away. In that tiny room full of machines and antiseptic smells, Eli felt something sacred, blooming recognition without language. Pain meeting pain. The vet entered quietly, clipboard in hand. "You're not family, are you?" Eli shook his head. "No, I saw what happened." The vet nodded. "She's a fighter. Malnourished, maybe 6 years old. Front paws fractured, right ears torn, dehydrated, but no internal damage. She's tough." Eli looked back at the cat, suddenly angry at the idea of her being nameless, tagless, forgotten. "Does she have a name?" The vet shook his head. "We're calling her Highway for now." Eli winced. That wasn't right. That wasn't her story. She deserved better than to be remembered only by where she almost died. As the vet turned to leave, Eli stood. What happens next? The vet glanced over his shoulder. She stay a few more days, then go up for adoption. Unless she has an owner, which doesn't seem likely. No microchip, no collar. She's probably been on her own for a while. Eli nodded, then left the room slowly, every step feeling heavier. In the lobby, the woman at the desk smiled gently. You're not the first to come asking. She's got a lot of fans now. That video went viral. People from other states calling in to adopt her. Eli's jaw clenched. Something about that didn't sit right. It felt wrong, like strangers swooping in to collect a story, not a soul. That night, back in his trailer, Eli sat with his hands pressed together, elbows on his knees, thinking. He'd spent years pushing people away, insisting he didn't need anyone. But something about that cat had cracked his armor. He saw himself in her, not just in the trauma, but in the quiet dignity of survival. She hadn't asked for help, hadn't cried out. She'd waited, still and silent, to see if the world would offer kindness or destruction. And now that she had a chance at safety, she was about to become someone's charity project. Eli didn't want that for her. He wanted her to be seen. He hadn't adopted anything before, never owned a pet. But that night, he researched local laws, adoption protocols, and recovery timelines. The shelter's website confirmed it. Animals under observation could be requested for early fostering by approved locals. He filled out the form, line by line, hands trembling more than he expected. Under why do you want to foster? He typed. Because I need to be around something that fought to stay alive. He hit submit before he could second guess it. The email confirmation came instantly. It would take 48 hours for review. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he whispered to himself, she's not going to be just a headline. 2 days later, the call came. He was approved. The woman on the phone said they were surprised by the number of people applying, but his application stood out. You don't say much, she said, but what you said matters. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was thick with something unspoken. They scheduled pickup for that afternoon. He didn't shower. He just changed his shirt, cleared space in the corner of the trailer, and folded an old army blanket. He wasn't ready, not really, but he had learned, in war and in life, that readiness didn't matter. What mattered was showing up. When he walked into the shelter, the woman from the desk smiled. She's waiting for you. Eli followed her to the back again, where the cage door was already open. The cat lay curled, eyes half closed, her body calmer. He crouched, whispered, "Hey, soldier," and she lifted her head. The vet handed over the carrying crate, her tiny body barely filling half of it. She didn't cry, didn't resist. As they walked out, Eli felt the weight in his chest shift. Not vanish but move. He wasn't rescuing her, not really. They were rescuing each other. The crate sat in the passenger seat like a fragile secret. Eli drove with both hands on the wheel, glancing over every few seconds to check if she was okay. She'd meow, didn't move much, just lay there, eyes open, tail tucked close. He had placed an old towel inside, rolled up at the edges like a nest. The sun was starting to lower, casting long stripes of amber across the dash. Eli didn't put on the radio. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was mutual. He parked beside his trailer, heart beating faster than it should. Then he whispered, "We're home." It meant something. For the first time in years, it did. Inside, he had cleared the corner near the window. He placed the crate down gently, opened the door, and stepped back. She stayed inside at first, just watching. Then, with one careful paw, she stepped out. Her movements were slow, deliberate, like she didn't trust the floor. Eli sat on the ground a few feet away, legs crossed, hands still. "You take your time," he said quietly. She sniffed the floor, then the corner, then the food dish he'd left with plain shredded chicken. Her ears twitched, but she didn't run. It felt like a negotiation between two survivors, neither in a hurry, both reading the air. The days that followed were tentative. She didn't meow, didn't purr, didn't curl up in his lap like he'd seen in movies, but she stayed in the same room. She watched him as he worked on radios, blinking slowly from a blanket he'd folded under the window. She never turned away. When he made coffee in the morning, he found himself pouring a little bowl of warm water next to her food, checking its temperature like it was sacred. She never drank in front of him, only after he walked away. But that was okay. He understood the need for distance. She wasn't afraid, she was learning him. On the 5th day, he woke to find her on the other side of the room, watching him sleep. Not curled up, not touching, just present. Her tail flicked once when he opened his eyes, then stilled. He didn't speak. He didn't want to break it. That same morning, he opened the curtains wider, letting more light into the room. Later that afternoon, she walked up to his toolbox, sniffed it, and sat beside it for nearly an hour while he worked. The soft clicks of his screwdrivers didn't bother her. Eli smiled without realizing it. He didn't remember the last time his hands moved without shaking. The news of the highway cat was still making rounds online. Local outlets had picked up the shelter's post, and blurred screenshots of Eli from the traffic cam had gone semi-viral. He got a call from a local reporter asking for a quote. He declined. "She's not a story," he said, then hung up. The next day, someone left a bag of cat treats on his porch with a note, "Thank you for caring." He left the bag unopened. He didn't want fanfare. He wanted to earn her trust, moment by moment, without the noise. For once in his life, he didn't want to be seen, he wanted her to feel seen. Her paw was healing. The vet said she'd likely always walk with a slight limp, but there was no infection. Eli applied the ointment carefully each night, gently holding her leg in his large, calloused hands. She didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. On the 7th night, as he set the ointment down, she leaned her head slightly into his wrist. Just for a second, he froze. She blinked, turned away, and curled into her blanket. But that second stayed with him. It was the closest thing to trust he'd felt in years. It was quiet, unannounced, and real. He started talking to her. Nothing deep, just updates. Radio's fixed, coffee's too bitter today. Weather's shifting. At first he thought it was stupid, but it became natural. His voice grew less gravelly, his tone softened. He didn't expect her to answer, but she listened. That was enough. He named her quietly one morning, when the light hit her eyes just right, Sage, because she was calm. Because she saw everything. Because she had survived without losing the ability to watch without fear. He didn't say it out loud at first. Then one day, when she limped over to sit beside his toolbox again, he said, "Morning, Sage." Her ears turned toward him. That afternoon, his brother called. They hadn't spoken in over a year. "Saw you on TV. That your cat?" Eli hesitated. "She's not mine," he said. "But I think I'm hers." His brother laughed. "Sounds about right." Mom would have loved that. They didn't talk long, but it was the first time Eli stayed on the line past the second minute. Afterward, he looked at Sage, who was curled by the heater. "That counts as socializing, right?" Her tail flicked once. He smiled, more to himself than to her. It was like he was learning to live again, but with gentleness this time, with stillness. One morning, a storm rolled in, sharp wind, rain hitting the trailer hard. The sound made his muscles tighten. He stood still in the middle of the kitchen, heart racing. Then he felt her brush against his leg. Sage was there, pressing her body gently against his calf. He didn't move. She leaned in, just slightly, and stayed there. The storm continued, but inside, the noise softened. He knelt down slowly, placing a hand on her back. She didn't move away. She was choosing him, not out of fear, out of presence. In that moment, he realized something had shifted in both of them. That night, he left the crate open and slid it under the bed. Sage didn't need it anymore. She curled at the foot of his cot, and for the first time in almost a decade, Eli slept through the night. No nightmares, no sweats, just breath, hers and his, slow and steady. Something new had taken root between them, not just safety but purpose. He wasn't just housing a stray, he was learning to feel again. She wasn't a symbol of trauma anymore, she was becoming a companion. Not all wounds heal the same, but some wounds don't want to heal alone. By spring, the trailer no longer felt like a bunker, it felt like a home. Eli had rearranged the furniture to make more room near the windows, where Sage liked to watch the trees sway. She still limped slightly, but she moved with assurance now, jumping onto shelves, curling beside warm tools, rubbing her face against his boot when he returned from errands. She followed him from room to room, not needy, just present. And when he sat quietly in the evenings, soldering circuit boards or scribbling on repair slips, she'd hop onto the table and rest beside his elbow. Her breathing anchored him. Her silence was filled with meaning. The VA therapist was the first to notice the difference. Eli had restarted his appointments short at first, then longer. When asked what changed, he didn't go into details. "Something found me," he said, "and I stayed. It was enough." Over time, he stopped avoiding the grocery store. He made it past the fireworks aisle without having to leave. He even went to a cookout hosted by another veteran, bringing Sage's picture on his phone like a proud parent. The other guys laughed and nodded. "It's always the quiet ones," one said. "They save us when nothing else can." Eli didn't argue. He just smiled, hand resting on his chest. News of Sage didn't fade, it evolved. The shelter had posted an update with her adoption photo, her paw still wrapped, her body curled into Eli's lap. It went viral again. A local journalist asked for a follow-up. This time, Eli agreed. They came to his home, filmed short clips of Sage wandering curiously between wires and books. When asked why he adopted her, Eli answered simply, "She was alone in a place no one survives." So was I. The clip aired during a human interest segment. The station's inbox was flooded with letters, many from veterans. Some asked for advice, some just said thank you. That's when the idea started. Eli met with the shelter director and offered to help with hard-to-place animals, those who didn't warm up quickly, those who needed patience, quiet, and time. "The ones like me," he said. He began fostering one at a time. A dog too scared to eat, a cat who scratched everyone but froze in Eli's arms, a bird that sang only at night. Sage stayed close during each case, watching, guiding, never territorial. She seemed to understand each animal's rhythm, as if offering quiet permission. Eli built a small enclosure near the back of the trailer, turned it into a recovery space. The VA started referring patients to him, unofficially. Word got around. In the mornings, Sage waited by the door until he finished his coffee. They took walks together, her in a harness at first, then free under his watch. Neighbors would see them, the quiet man and the gray cat, pacing the same worn trail, step by step. A woman from down the road began leaving food donations on his porch. Children drew pictures of Sage and slipped them into his mailbox. The town didn't pity him anymore. They respected him. Not because he saved a cat, but because he stayed saved. Because he chose to live, one small decision at a time. People noticed that kind of courage. Every evening, before bed, he cleaned Sage's ears with a soft cloth. She no longer resisted. Her body trusted him completely now. One night, after turning off the light, he whispered into the dark, "You were never lost. You were just waiting for someone who could see you." She purred softly, the sound vibrating through the cot frame. That night, he dreamed of a battlefield filled with fog, but this time, he wasn't alone. A small gray figure walked beside him, undaunted. No gunfire, no fear, just breath and earth and something unbroken. Eventually, he framed the printout of her traffic cam image. Not the moment of fear, but the one where she blinked and stepped forward. He placed it above his desk, beside his discharge papers. When asked why, he explained, "That step saved us both." The VA installed a small plaque at the clinic's waiting room, "To the quiet survivors. Sometimes healing walks on 4 legs." Beneath it was a drawing, Sage curled beside a soldering iron. People would sit longer in the lobby now, just to look at it. Some cried, some smiled, everyone remembered. One day, a boy came to visit with his mother. His father had passed in service, and the boy hadn't spoken in weeks. He sat on Eli's floor beside Sage for nearly an hour. She didn't move. Neither did he. Then, quietly, the boy reached out and touched her back. "Soft," he said. His mother gasped. Eli didn't speak, he just nodded. It wasn't a miracle, it was presence. It was proof that sometimes the deepest wounds respond to the smallest gestures. A breath, a blink, a step forward. That was enough. That was everything. Eli never claimed to be healed. He didn't preach or write memoirs. But those who knew him could see it. He had come back. Not as a soldier, not as a symbol, but as a man with a life. A man who fed animals that no one else understood. A man who listened more than he spoke. A man who, in saving a cat, rediscovered his right to be part of the world. And when people asked what changed, he always answered the same way. I didn't just rescue a cat. I found the part of me that stopped running.